Hello, this is Nancy. This is a brief tutorial on creating a spec sheet. A spec sheet is a starting place when we are thinking about student engagement. And we have a framework that we use to help you create a spec sheet for your students. This Go Animate tutorial will give you a little more information.
Hey Jesse, I'm trying to do my spec sheet for our session next week and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. Can you help me?
I think so. Here's what I did. I used side 1 of the design quality card to think about my class. I worked my way down the card thinking about what I know about my students. I jotted down my responses to the questions. If I didn't know, I made note that this is something I may want to ask my students.
Well, that doesn't sound too difficult. You said that you just had to think about your students and respond to the questions?
Yes, because you are trying to identify what's important to your kids. What are the kind of things that appeal to them? How do they like to learn?
Well, that makes sense. But what if I don't feel like I know them yet?
Just do the best you can. You might find out that you have to talk to your kids and that would help you learn more about them.
Is there a form I'm supposed to put this on?
No, you can use a piece of paper if you want. I used Lino and some of my colleagues used Padlet and other digital tools. It doesn't matter. The information is what is important.
Hey, thanks Jesse, I appreciate your help.
No problem.
As I mentioned before, we have a framework that helps you create your spec sheet. And we call this framework the design qualities. And so you are going to use the side one questions on that green laminated card and think about a particular class of students and simply respond to those questions. Now you can write your responses using any of these tools that I've listed here, or you can use a piece of paper and pencil if that's what works best. I do have a folder in Edmodo called Spec Sheet Examples that has a Word document in it that has a link to these different digital tools. So check that out if one of these is appealing to you. So here are two examples. You can just see this was done on a piece of flip chart paper, and as you take into consideration the questions on side 1, you're simply writing your responses, thinking about a particular class of kids. This example here was used using the app Simple Minds. It's an iPad app and it's free. So you create your spec sheet using any tool that you like. The most important thing is to be thoughtful about your responses, and if you don't know what the answer is to one of the questions, that's a great thing to go and talk to your kids about once you leave us here. So once you have a spec sheet, what you have is a nice picture of things that are important to your students, how they like to learn, other things that might be appealing to them, speak to their motives, needs, or values, and that's what you keep in mind as you are designing engaging work. It's also important to take this into consideration when you are selecting resources that you want your kids to access, or if you are creating new resources for them to use. Think about the types of things that are appealing to them. How do you make and select resources that they would see are authentic? Or maybe when you're creating something, you bring some novelty into it, and that is going to get their attention. So the spec sheet gives you insight into the motives, needs, and values for your students. Things that are important to them, things that might be appealing to them, and if you take these things into consideration when you are designing work, selecting or creating resources, you have a better chance of engaging your students. Let us know if you need any help.